Just imagine waking up one morning and everything in your life being completely normal. You have a job, you have a house, you have friends, family, all the material things you could ever want. Your future looks bright. Next day you wake up, and all of that is gone. Your world is turned upside down because you are now a murder suspect. Well, that is exactly what happened to this man right here. Believe me when I say that he did absolutely nothing to deserve any of this. It was just an ordinary day in the small town of Belton, South Carolina, when two joggers stumbled upon something horrific. A dead body lying face down in a wooded area not far from the town center. What made this so disturbing was the fact that they could clearly see the victim's face. It had been shot at close range, which meant that whoever did this didn't think twice about taking his life. They were ruthless. This event shook the entire community to its core, as everyone wondered, who could have committed such a heinous act? It was no secret that before moving to Belton, this man had led a rather problematic life, so there were plenty of people who wanted him dead. But why was he murdered in such a brutal manner? Who could be responsible for his death? Most importantly, how did he end up in that position? Well, today we will be answering all of these questions and more, so make sure to watch until the very end. But before we start, I kindly ask you to support my work. Now let's get into the details of this gruesome murder. Richard Allen Martin was born on November 17, 1954. Throughout his early life, he bounced from one foster home to another. His biological parents were unable to take care of him, which is why they eventually gave up on him. However, despite having such a rough start in life, he grew up to become a rather successful businessman. He married a woman named Teresa Lynn Martin, and together they had 3 children. Everything seemed to be going well for him until his wife left him, taking the kids with her. This devastated Richard, especially since she took full custody. He only got to see his children on very rare occasions. To deal with the pain, he began abusing alcohol and became a regular at AA meetings. His attendance was so consistent that many members of the group started to consider him as one of their own. Even though he wasn't really trying to quit drinking. In fact, he continued to drink heavily behind closed doors. Eventually, his heavy drinking got in the way of his marriage, and he was forced to move out of his house. On September 16, 1989, he called his wife and asked if he could come over to collect some of his belongings. Teresa agreed and even invited him to stay over for dinner. However, things didn't go as planned. After Richard showed up, he began drinking excessively and caused a huge scene. This angered Teresa, who threw him out of the house. From that day forward, Richard vowed to get his revenge on his ex-wife. He knew that he couldn't hurt her directly without getting into serious trouble. So instead, he decided to target her boyfriend, whose name was David Eugene Satterfield. On October 11, 1989, he drove to Teresa's house and waited in his car until she left for work. As soon as she was gone, he snuck inside and stole several items, including a shotgun and a pistol. He then went to Satterfield's house and fired over a dozen rounds from the shotgun. Although Satterfield was hit, he managed to survive the attack. When the police arrived at the scene, they found Richard's fingerprints all over the place. So there was no doubt that he was behind the shooting. At that point, it was clear that Richard was a dangerous individual who needed to be locked up. But he had already disappeared by the time the police reached the crime scene. In the following weeks, the police received numerous tips regarding his whereabouts, but none of them proved to be useful. Eventually, the investigation went cold, and everyone forgot about the incident until April 11, 1991. When something strange happened. A young couple from Anderson County, South Carolina, went on a date to Lake Hartwell. When it was time to go, they decided to drive around the lake so they could enjoy the view. They parked their car on the shore and walked over to the water to take some pictures. That's when they saw a white van parked nearby. At first, they thought nothing of it. But when they checked their cameras, they realized someone had taken pictures of them. One of the photos even had a man standing right behind the couple trying to discreetly take a picture of them. The couple became concerned and quickly moved to a different location. When they developed the film, they noticed that the man had followed them. In one of the pictures, he was literally standing mere feet away from them. The man in the picture was later identified as Richard Allen Martin. It didn't take long for the police to arrest him. This time, they had photographic evidence that placed him at the scene of the crime. During his trial, Richard testified that he only visited the lake to feed the ducks. However, the jury saw through his lies and found him guilty. He was charged with first-degree burglary and third-degree assault and battery. As he was being led to his holding cell, he told the press that he would appeal the verdict. However, he never got the chance. While in jail, he befriended an inmate named Timothy Taylor. Taylor later admitted that while in prison, Richard confessed to him that he was actually the one who had shot Satterfield. He also told Taylor that he had killed his ex-wife, Teresa, too, but he claimed that he had done so in self-defense. Now, even though Richard had confessed to Taylor, he still hadn't been charged with murder. To this day, nobody knows exactly what happened between Richard and Teresa, but we do know that she had been reported missing since June of 1989. The police searched everywhere for her remains, but it wasn't until March of 2007 that they finally got a breakthrough. Two fishermen were out on the lake when they heard a strange noise coming from the water. Upon closer inspection, they realized that it was the sound of a human skull hitting the surface. As soon as they pulled it out, they contacted the police. When the authorities arrived, they also found a human jawbone. Both were sent to a lab for testing. And 3 days later, it was confirmed that the skull belonged to Teresa Martin. With new evidence in hand, the police decided to bring Richard to justice once and for all. On August 8, 2007, he was charged with 2 counts of murder. After hearing the news, Timothy Taylor contacted the media and revealed that Richard had confessed to him. But as you can probably guess, this wasn't enough to secure a conviction. The prosecution needed solid evidence, which is why they dug up Richard's prison cell. They collected a DNA sample from him and compared it to the evidence they had gathered over the years. It was a slow process, but eventually they got results. The DNA found under Teresa's fingernails matched Richard's. This meant that she had scratched him during the struggle. This was the evidence that the police had been looking for all along. And I'm sure you can agree that it's pretty incredible that after all those years, science was able to prove Richard's guilt. After reviewing all of the evidence, the jury had no choice but to find him guilty. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Richard had planned to kill both women. He'd stolen the shotgun from his ex-wife, knowing exactly what he was going to do with it. As for why he killed Teresa, prosecutors said that it was probably to collect life insurance for his children. After the verdict was read, Richard remained calm, showed no emotion whatsoever. The judge sentenced him to 30 years in prison, but considering his age, this basically meant that he wouldn't make it out alive. After spending the last years of his life behind bars, Richard Allen Martin passed away on July 18, 2013, at the age of 58. As for the 2 people who discovered Teresa's skull, they later filed a lawsuit against Anderson County, claiming that the county should have conducted a thorough search of the lake long ago. A judge ultimately dismissed the lawsuit, stating that the county had done all they could, given the circumstances. This case is a prime example of why DNA testing is so important. Without it, a killer could easily get away with their crimes. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend watching another one I did about a similar topic.